Pacific Rim Uprising figures are at Big Bad Toy Store, so check out the link in the description below. Kaiju, Dragon Ball, Pokemon, and more. It's Steven's Toy Reviews. Hello there, collectors, and it's Steven here, and we are finally kicking off the Jaeger reviews for Pacific Rim Uprising with the Robot Spirits Gipsy Avenger. Some people call it Robot Tamashii, but I'm going to go ahead with Robot Spirit since that's in the actual title on Tamashii.jp. But anyway, we have the lead Jaeger from the new Pacific Rim movie, finally in action figure format from the company who said they could do it better than NECA. Yep, I'm starting the company wars right here in the first video, but you know what? It's going to be a good thing because guess how much Gipsy Avenger is? $20. Bandai is known for charging anywhere between $50 to $80 for any of their action figures, including some of the best robot spirits out there today. With that in mind, did Bandai purposely skimp out on this action figure here just to get it out on the market and capitalize on movie hype? Or even at $20, did they still do a good job? Buckle in, folks, because this is going to be quite the interesting ride. Let's take a look to see whether or not it's worth adding into your collection. So let's go ahead and get the negatives out of the way early so this way we can keep the review as light as possible. One of the things a lot of folks are going to notice right away with Gipsy Avenger here is that there's going to be a lot of bare plastic with not a whole lot of painted details. Sure, there's going to be some silver and some blue here and there that has to be painted. There are decals, which is a good thing, but unfortunately the detailing is scaled back a little bit. Again, it's only $20, so do keep that in mind. But aside from that, Bandai did a really good job here. Again, at $20, a lot of folks were expecting pretty much no detailing on these guys, and you know what? There's probably some shading and whatnot that they could have added in here, but they didn't. You'll see why some of that was removed in favor of things like articulation and accessories in a little bit, but the way Gipsy Avenger looks really is more than just acceptable at least the bare minimum. So let's stop taking that 360 spin view of Gipsy here, and let's take a closer look. Up top, the head, the con pod, everything looks very nice. We do have some red lines coming down from the top of the head all the way to the forehead, which are really clean, and then we have that visor there. Interesting thing about the visor, we can clearly see some gold paint. Up close on this DSLR camera, we're gonna see some slop, but what's also interesting is depending on how the light hits it, it looks like translucent plastic, which is really weird because none of the other two Jaegers actually have that effect. So I don't know whether or not this is actually translucent plastic or it's just a very unique effect with the gold paint that they used. Regardless, it is a sweet end product here. Moving on down, we do have the chest of Avenger, and we do have the GN006 decal that's on there with some red markings, which are great. Honestly, they did a really fantastic job for $20, and we do have the dual openings for the core or the reactor, whatever you want to call it, which use orange translucent plastic. Very nice touch to this figure here. Really captures that original feel of Gipsy Danger, and it is done wonderfully. Even lights up really well if you hold a light to it, so that is a plus there. As we continue to move on down Gipsy Avenger, we do see that the decals on the thighs are printed rather well, and the combination of the silver and blue plastic is really great. The sculpted details are fantastic. There's some panel lining that probably could have been done for only about $20 though. It's not something that we're going to harp on them for. However, when we take a look at the back of Gipsy Avenger, we do actually see some more sculpted detail, but the paint is pretty much non-existent. This is one of the areas where I really do think that they dropped the ball, and this is definitely a philosophy carried over from the boys division with painting vinyls, in that if you can't see it from the front, don't worry about painting it. Rather disappointing here. We at least get to see some of the mechanics of Gipsy Avenger, like on the back we have what look like some pistons and whatnot, which are sculpted rather well. But unfortunately, because there's no wash or paint, we're not really able to see them. Now, I was holding off on taking a look at the arms because realistically speaking, they're really cool. We do have a whole bunch of red lines on them. The sculpted details are executed fairly well, but what I think is really cool is that at $20, you're not really going to be seeing a whole lot on the figure, right? Nope. On the shoulder, unfortunately, I can't zoom in fully so you can read this, but it does actually say Pan-Pacific Defense Corps. Yep. They were able to get all of that lettering in on that small space. Admittedly, it does look a little bit sloppy on one of the shoulder pads, but you know what? they were able to do it. So all in all, at the end of the day, I do think that there are some drawbacks to Gipsy Avenger, including the lack of things like shading and panel lining, but still, the detailing that they were able to cram in here for about $20 for an import action figure is really nice. For Gipsy's articulation, those of you who are used to robot spirits having things like cuts in the middle of the hinges for swivels, sort of like the Robot Spirits God Gundam and whatnot, dial it back a little bit because that's not what we're going to get here with Gipsy Avenger. However, we are going to get some pretty nice articulation for the price point, and if you need to put Gipsy in some poses, you're going to be good to go. So what do we have? The head connects into the neck portion here on a ball joint, so this way we can get Gipsy to look about that far up, that far down, left, right, bob, forward, and back, and then the neck actually plugs in on a little bit of a ball joint, so we do get a little bit more movement there. The helmet on the back, unfortunately, does block the articulation a little bit, but you can get that kind of movement out of Gipsy Avenger if you'd like. You can wiggle the head back and forth like that, so that's pretty cool. Now, when we get to the shoulders, very interesting design here, and this is something that you're going to notice throughout all of the Jaeger reviews that I'll be doing. A lot of the joints are identical, meaning the shoulder joint, the hip joint, the elbow joint, knees, ankles, all the same style of joint. They're just reused. So if for some reason you need a part swap, like you lose the ankle joints for your Titan Redeemer, and you need to use a Gipsy Avenger ankle joint, you're fine to do that. Anyway, so what do we have? Well, we do have a ball joint that plugs in, and then where the ball joint plugs in for the shoulder, there's a swivel. So we have a great range of movement there, and then the actual shoulder itself is a ball joint as well. So we get a lot of movement here. Unfortunately, the shoulder pads do block the articulation just a little bit, so you're really going to have to play with the arm movement, so this way you don't pop them off. But thankfully, if you do that, those shoulder pads are on ball joints, so you can fix that relatively easily. So let's go ahead and pop that bad boy back on there. There we go. So yeah, we get some decent movement out of the shoulders. We can get a little bit of an elbow rocket going on, so if you just want to angle it correctly, you can get that. It's okay. So let's fix that up here. So if you're really looking to just get Gipsy to raise its arms up about as high as it can go, it's gonna be about there. That's about as close to a T-pose as we can get. Something that's aggravating, though, is that sometimes that inner swivel where the ball joint plugs in, it doesn't want to move, or it will move into one spot, and then it just refuses to keep moving. Like this one over here is really stuck for me, so sometimes, let's zoom in here a little bit. You can see that there's a cut on that ball joint right in there that allows you to raise and lower the arm. Well, if that cut is facing forward, so it's facing towards the camera, let's say, all right, then you're not going to be able to raise and lower Gipsy's arm at all. So that is a real pain. But other than that, we do have the standard movement. We do have a bicep swivel, which is very nice. We have double hinge elbows, which is really cool. For the wrists, we do just have standard ball joints where the hand plugs in. So you're going to get a lot of spinning movement alongside some rocking movement, if you will. Unfortunately, there are some wrist guards here that do block articulation a little bit. So yeah, keep that in mind. So this way you can't actually have the hands go all the way out like that. But it is what it is. For an ab crunch, we do have a little bit of ball jointed movement here, so Gipsy can go about that far back, that far down, rocking from side to side, twisting and turning. Sculpt does unfortunately take the toll on that, so a little bit of blocked movement there. No waist joint, surprisingly, but what they did do is for the hips, that centerpiece is on a ball joint, so if you want, you can offset the hips like that. You can see that piece popping out there, and then we'll go ahead and do that to the other side. Why? Oh, they did it because they can do it. I think you can rotate them if you wanted to. Yeah, like that. So if you wanted to do that, you could. So that's pretty neat. Now, the way that the legs work, it's pretty interesting. We do have ball-jointed hips that kind of sort of have a pseudo pull-down configuration going on because there is a cut up at the top so you can raise and lower the hips if you want, kind of like that. So that's neat. So yes, we do have ball-jointed hips, so we can go about that far back, that far forward, that far out, unfortunately. But what's interesting is that the hip connection then plugs into the leg on a ball joint, right at the thigh there. So you can get perfect swivel movement along with moving the legs in and out like that. So you can get better movement just like this. Let's swing the hips back in. There we go. Or rather, that's the pelvis. So yeah, you can get Gipsy to go really, really wide legged if you wanted to. We have double hinge knees. That's always the standard. And then for the ankles, we do have ball joints. So you can get some ankle rocker movement forward and back. Yeah, the sculpt is going to block that just a little bit. No toe hinge, which is very, very disappointing. So yeah, that's about it for the articulation on Gipsy Avenger. Yeah, so elbow rockets, you can do it. You got to fiddle with it a little bit. And the arms are a little disappointing because of the shoulder pads, but realistically speaking, if you're creative, you're going to be able to get Gipsy into a whole bunch of fun poses, and that limited articulation is only going to stop those who aren't willing to put in the effort, because at the end of the day, we do get a rather well-articulated action figure for the price, and it can still stand on one foot. Passes the articulation test for me. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about Gipsy's accessories, and Gipsy Avenger comes with two splayed hands that are more so fist-catching hands. Yeah, that's kind of weird to say it, but you'll see in a second. We do have the gravity sling, which is kind of like the plasma caster, but not. And then we have a replacement forearm piece for the chainsword that does have a ball joint on it, so this way you can attach a hand to it if you would like. Something to keep in mind, you can't swap the plasma caster or the chainsword arm onto the other one. They're kind of set in stone for where you have to attach them because of the way that they attach into the arms and the sculpt and all that fun stuff. Something else to keep in mind, the two quote-unquote wings on the back of Gipsy Avenger are not attached in package, so you're just going to have to pop them in. They're not really accessories, but, you know, they're just a little bit extra work that you have to put into making Gipsy Avenger complete. Now, we're going to do something a little bit different for accessories moving forward, just so this way I can save production time, but I think you guys might like it. So, how do the accessories work? Well, for the hands, all you got to do is just pop them off, and then you just pop the new ones on. So, as you can see, once you do pop those hands on, just like that, that is neutral, right? So, as you can see, where that hole is for the ball joint, it's kind of forcing the hand to naturally be an open palm instead of sort of a splayed hand. So if you were to just have Gipsy have the hand level, yeah, it kind of looks a little weird. So, you know, that is a personal preference. That is one of those things where you can recreate the iconic pose. So, yeah, that's cool. Now, how do we use the other accessories? Well, simple. Kind of. You just kind of pull the arm off. And then you just have to line up the hole in the arm with the peg on the elbow joint and push. And then you'll get it. You got to listen for a click. That is one of the issues. Sometimes it doesn't really feel like you're attaching it incorrectly. And then once you do have it, boom, there you go. Now Gipsy can use the gravity sling. No problem. So the gravity sling, like I said, has to stay on the right arm. You can't flip it over and use it on the left. So now for the chainsword, again, you just pop it off, and then you try to line it up correctly. And then you'll have Gipsy Avenger using pretty much all of the weapons, because it does have the elbow rocket, which isn't included, which is a bit of a disappointment. Listen for the click, then you attach it in, and then all you need to do is just find the hand that you want to use. So let's just go ahead and use the fist. And you just pop it in. Easy peasy. One more thing that's not really an accessory to go with Gipsy Avenger is we do have this plug on the butt, which you can just kind of pull off. It takes a little bit of practice because it does fit in relatively snug. It reveals a hole, and that hole is compatible with any sort of Tamashii stage support system you might have. So this way you don't need a support claw. You can just go ahead and use this, and it does hold up really well. So the accessories do look nice. For the gravity sling, there is some translucent plastic alongside the normal blue that's used for Gipsy, so the attention to detail is fantastic, including the inside where the hole is. So we do have silver painted detail. That looks really, really cool. It does look like Gipsy is actually using it. instead of being passive like some other companies might do for theirs. And then along with the chainsword, not only is it really spiky, but the detailing is fantastic, and it really does look like metal. This does look like Gipsy is being very, very ferocious. So overall, for accessories, it's unfortunate that we don't get left and right parts for both the gravity sling and the chainsword, since Gipsy does have two of them. And it's kind of a spoiler, not really, but the chainsword does show up as blue in the trailers, and then there is an interesting orange chainsword that fires off. I'm thinking that that's actually a saw, and we don't get it in this set. So I'm totally expecting a deluxe version of Gipsy Avenger to come down the pipeline relatively soon. But overall, we get a fantastic bang for our buck at $20. However, if you do want to enhance your display, there are always options for effect parts, and you know which video I'm going to link in the top right-hand corner of your screen, so go ahead and click that if you need some recommendations for picking out effect parts. And now here is that size comparison with Gipsy Avenger alongside the other first wave of Jaegers from Tamashii Nations. And as you can see, 6-inch scale. Oh yeah, this is pretty good. So overall, the scaling and the sizing for Gipsy Avenger is pretty nice if you wanted to go toe-to-toe with your SH Monster Arts, or even the NECA Kaiju that were released. Gipsy Avenger fits in relatively well with all scales. So buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. In general, I think Gipsy Avenger does look, at least at the bare minimum, like I said, acceptable. Of course, they could have added in washing and paint and whatnot to this figure to make it pop out a little bit more, but for $20 you can perfectly do that yourself, and if you mess up, you can go ahead and just get a brand new one. The articulation unfortunately does leave a little bit to be desired. Admittedly, I'm used to things like Wing Zero and the God Gundam from the Robot Spirits line, which are leaps and bounds better than this thing in terms of articulation, with a whole bunch of swivels hidden in spots you wouldn't even think to look. But keeping that in mind, I do think they did the best that they could with the price point. And the accessories, while very nice, I do feel that there may be an accessory set or a deluxe figure pack coming down the line, and then it's kind of like, well, yeah, we just bought this thing and kind of wasted $20. Keeping all of that in mind, I do think that Gipsy Avenger is very nice. It scales perfectly fine with your SH Monster Arts figures or your other NECA Pacific Rim figures that you might have. So whether or not you're looking to add in an import Jaeger finally to your collection, or to just continue on that spirit of Pacific Rim with the other figures you might have, definitely consider picking up Gipsy Avenger. I do think that Bandai should have gone all in and just made one awesome Robot Spirits, or even Super Robot Chogokin, or what do they call it now? Soul of Chogokin Action? I don't know, whatever. I really would have liked to have seen an $80 figure of Gipsy Avenger from Bandai, but at the end of the day, if this is all that we're going to get, they did a pretty solid job. Well, folks, that's the end of this review. Thanks for watching, and be sure to follow me on social media to catch more behind-the-scenes shenanigans and updates. The end card should be popping up now with more hand-selected STR goodness for you to watch, so check out some of those videos. Be sure to check the description too to see where you can buy this figure or others like it, and some cool links like the credits for this video and other ways you can help out the channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch ya in the next video.